Steve here with David Wright. How you doing, David?
I'm doing well, Steve. Thank you.
So David's a personal trainer slash coach at Fitness for 10 in Carson City, Nevada. Go say hi to him if you're in the area. So we're going to talk about how to use the scale, how to actually monitor your progress. If you guys like content like this, please like and subscribe um, to the channel. We do interviews with trainers, doctors, nutritionists, and so on. Um, right now, we're going to talk about how do you measure your progress? Are you going in the right direction? Are you going in the wrong direction? And the scale can lie to you, right? I mean, the scale
Yeah.
can lie and maybe tell you you're doing well when you're really not. So when your body's lighter, that doesn't mean you're on the right track. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I have a lot of clients, from the very beginning, we talk about similar things. And one of the things that's very, very common is, people talk about the scale a lot. And I'll tell you now, as a fitness competitor, I'm very in tune with, kind of how my body feels and like pretty much weigh myself on a daily basis to see, especially if I had different kinds of food, to see how it affected me weight wise, etc. But I'm on a different track than most people are. What happens is a lot of times that I've seen, Steve, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, is we have folks that will be really obsessed with the number on that scale and where is it going, and if I gain a pound, then I'm gonna freak out about it, that type of thing. But the thing is, to your point, that can be kind of deceptive about a scale is, maybe we lose a pound or we lose 3 pounds or whatever that looks like. And to a lot of us, that's an indicator of, okay, so I'm doing all the right things and I'm getting things in the right direction, which could be true. However, one of the things too is you could be dehydrated. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why you could lose weight. So what I like to make sure that people understand, whether they're a training client or something like that, just another member here at the gym, or even a family member. I'll talk about this sometimes. Drives people a little nuts in my family, but they know that I have the ideas of how this all works. Is you know the scale is but one small tool and a bunch of different tools that you have to measure your progress and to help you along that fitness or health journey that you're on. It's one tool. A lot of times we treat it as the only tool, and that's kind of where things get a little bit iffy, is if we treat it as the one tool that gauges our success to health and fitness. It's going to be a really, really a bumpy ride, I guess is the best way to put it, because that scale will go up and down, and people get a little bit too involved with what that number is versus, doing an occasional measurement of themselves to just kind of keep that number in check and kind of understand where you're at, but don't really pay attention to how am I feeling? How's my body feeling? And the scale can't tell you that. So when people obsess a lot about the scale part of everything, I kind of try to steer them away from that, not to not weigh yourself, but to just utilize that as one of many tools that you have available to you to kind of check your progress.
Yeah, and let's just stick with the scale for a minute here before we get into all the ways how to use the scale and other tools. There's some simple ways to know if the scale's lying to you or not. But first of all, if you're gaining weight on the scale, that might not be bad. If you're training hard and you're putting muscle tissue on, and you could be getting leaner and you're speeding up your metabolism, you're making your metabolism work faster because you're putting more muscle on, your body's going to work better. Then added weight is good. A lot of people call this recompositioning. I'm going to recomp my body. Um, so just because you're gaining weight doesn't mean it's bad. And just because you're losing weight doesn't mean it's good. Because if you're losing lean tissue, that is not good. You are making your body unhealthy, and you're losing weight and it's lean tissue. You're you're in trouble. You know, you're heading in the wrong place. when that's happening. So let's talk about how do we know if we're gaining weight and on the scale. How would we know if that's good? What other tools do you use to measure whether that's a good or bad thing?
So, I mean, as a really good example, some things that happen, as some of you out there know, I'm a fitness competitor, do men's physique on the stage, and it's a perfect example of what you just said. So, when you get on stage, and if you've ever seen a bodybuilding show, I mean, the people that get on the stage, they're kind of dehydrated to the bone, they're ripped, they're all these things, right? And they're at a weight that you'd never be able to sustain more than basically that day for stage, and then you kind of go back up. So for me, the example why I bring that up is, you get used to being in a certain range as you're preparing for a competition, and then you start eating more, incorporating more food, more protein, carbs, all those things to get back into that healthy routine, and eating enough food to gain more muscle, as you just alluded to. You're putting on more muscle tissue. Well, it also, of course, means you're gaining weight. Now, does that mean you're gaining body fat? Probably a little bit, but that doesn't mean you're gaining 10-15% of body fat with this weight. So like for me, as an example on that, I've increased my weight probably 15 pounds since I got off stage 8 weeks ago. Now, for a lot of people, maybe you're not in a competition type of thing, so you're not at that level, but you're gaining some kind of weight and you're going, man, this is not, I want to go the opposite direction. But the point I wanted to bring up with those two examples is, with me or with somebody who's not a competitor, is you're possibly putting on that weight because you are gaining muscle, especially if you're in the gym or somewhere and you're doing, you know, a lot of exercise, heavy lifting, whatever that case might be, and you're gaining that muscle tissue. Like for me, I'm gaining more muscle tissue, putting on muscle tissue, making sure that, my hydration's right. So all of those things contribute to heavier weight. And so, to your point of the weight loss portion, where that's not always a good thing, losing that muscle tissue or possible dehydration, both. So you really have to be in tune. So some of the things that I use besides the scale is number one, visually, how do I look? Number two, how do I feel about everything? What does my body feel like? Do I feel like I have energy? Am I fatigued? What does that feel like? Because that's one thing that a lot of people ignore is how they feel, and they attribute it to all sorts of other things. Oh, I'm tired because of work, or I'm achy because of this or that. Your body's telling you stuff. So one of the main things that I listen to is, am I hungry all the time? Hey, that's probably your metabolism, right? Speeding up. So maybe you should eat a little bit more, incorporate some more food. Watching the type of food we're incorporating, of course, that was a whole nother video, but those types of things. So visually kind of seeing my changes over time, but also, and I tell my clients this too, how are you feeling? So really pay attention to that. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, for sure. Um, you can take measurements, measure your
Mm-hmm.
bicep, measure your waist, measure your hips, measure your thighs. So, and your body composition matters. Your age, all these things matters because there is a time when the scale is going to not lie to you. It's always going to tell you if you're going the right direction or not. And that is if you're 5 foot tall and you weigh 350 pounds, um, the scale is good enough. You need it to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And if it goes up, if you weigh 300, 350 pounds and you're 5 foot tall and the scale is going up, that is not good.
Correct.
Absolutely not good. We're talking about people that have a fairly lean body composition, which means they're not overweight and they're not really underweight. So those people that are in kind of that sweet spot, the scale is not the tool that is the best tool to use.
Mm-hmm.
You can use it, but you need to incorporate measurements. What's your chest measurement? What are your hips? Again, the things that I mentioned before. Your arms, what are they? If your arms, if your biceps are getting bigger and the scale is staying the same, that's a good thing.
Right. Absolutely.
Right, because you're putting lean tissue on. So you've got to use other methods if you're in that kind of that sweet spot where you're not overweight and you're not underweight. But we also have in the gym where you are, um, David, is a body scanner. And
Hmm.
that is phenomenal. Again, you've got to, some of these things are kind of squirrely, so you need to have somebody who knows how to use it. It needs to be one that works and that is consistent, because otherwise you're just going to get pissed off, and rightfully so, because if it's not reading it accurate, that's not a good thing. But the one we have there will do your measurements. It does your measurements the same way every time. And it's not something that you want to do every day, but it's something you can do every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks. So tell us a little bit about that and how you would incorporate that with your clients.
Yeah, so we've started incorporating that here since we got it, several months back and started incorporating that. It's really, really important because we get a baseline for where all the clients are, and what all that means is okay. Today, right now, where you're at when we're doing this 3D body scan, here's all of your measurements. So it does measurements throughout the whole body. So you have an outline of where the measurements were taken on the body because it does a 3D image of you. You also have the numbers. So what are those measurements? And then as we move along, I mean, it measures your body fat and kind of gives you an idea of where you're at in comparison to the general, population. And so it gives us also the ability to set goals. So with my clients, if somebody, has a little bit more body fat than they would like to have, and they want to have a goal, because usually people have a goal, of course, coming in the gym. Why are you here? What brought you to come sign up at the gym? Because we don't just drive by a gym one day and say, oh, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to just stop in there today for no reason and sign up for a gym membership. There's a reason. So when they come and see me and we go and do the 3D body scan, which is super fast, it gives us so much information for that particular member. And we're able to look at that, so we get all of those measurements. And what we've done so far with in the last couple of months with all of our clients, myself and the other trainers as well, is we'll do repeat scans on these clients, so we keep track of that progress. We can look at it from a number standpoint. Okay, what was it the first time and where are we at now? We can visually see the measurements themselves. Like for a bicep as a great example, we can put the outline of their bicep the first scan and the outline of it now, see the different shape or the size change of it. So again, if they're getting leaner but their weight's still the same, or maybe it's gone up a little bit, but we see that change in the bicep and going, hey, you know what, that's grown. Or it's the same but your body fat's less, that means you're putting on muscle tissue. Because as we all know, most of us, your body fat, pound of body fat's like this big, pound of muscles like this big, so very dense. So when you're losing that body fat, you're losing a lot more volume off of your body than that little tiny bit of muscle that you're growing. So it's really good to see that progress, because people aren't going to see that necessarily, with their own eyes, at least at that stage, see that progress, but we're able to show it. So it's really important to get those accurate measurements and just keep track that way. And it's fast. So not only do you have, the scale, which is part of the scan, but it's not the important part of the scan. It's but one of the many numbers that you get and can keep track of there. So you can see the scale. Is it going up? Is it going down? But along with that, what do those measurements look like? So it's a really great tool to be able to use. So when you have a tool like that and utilize that same tool to get those measurements, to get the body fat, to get all those numbers and keep track of it, it's going to help quite a bit in measuring where you're at and what progress you're making.
Yeah, and there's one last tool I will mention, which I really like. A lot of health clubs have them. Skin calipers. So I'm going to measure my chest here, the pinch, and I'm going to do it maybe 3 times and take an average. And so if that skin fold measurement is getting smaller, I'm going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
You can take one behind the arm. You can take the abdominal area. You can do your quad. And if that measurement is getting smaller, 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 and I think it measures it in millimeters, then you know you're going in the right direction. So if you're gaining weight, but those skin folds in all the different places you're taking them, and there's a formula you can look up on your computer, and you can put in those measurements, and it will tell you an estimate of what your body composition is, how much body fat you have, and so on. So that's a really simple way to know if you're going in the right direction, something you can
Mhm.
do at home. And these skin calipers, I mean, you can get them for $10. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I haven't bought any in a while, but and they work, you know. So that's another tool, or you could use all the tools, and you can really monitor and see how your body's changing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so you guys put your comments in the comment section. Let us know what kind of progress you've made, how you measure your progress. We'd love to know. Um, Again, if you weigh 300, 400 pounds, the scale's good enough. Just start with that. So, David, if people want to follow you, your journey on social media, how do they do that?
So they can find me on Instagram at davidwright_fitness or at Wright Fitness Training for personal training page.
All right, David, we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Steve.